Good morning, family. This is Ricky, and welcome to Hope for Today. Happy Tuesday, fam. I've been preaching, I'm 47. I've been preaching about 20, 25, 26 years, something like that, give or take. And when I was a young preacher, so I had to be, I'm thinking I was 23, and I got invited up to Chicago to preach. A wonderful bishop who was up there who invited me to do kind of like a crusade, a tent meeting. We were preaching outside under a tent in the community. It was great. And this was a kind of a high clergyman, right? Like this is a big deal. Bishop Lindsay was his name, who invited this youngster out to preach. And I preached the first night. I guess it went well enough, but the next morning, I'll never forget Bishop Lindsay paying me a wonderful favor and saying, Ricky, I kind of want to give you some critique. You know, I was a young preacher, and he says, Ricky, I felt more like I was seeing some big name preachers that are on TV than I was seeing Ricky Jenkins. And to some extent, Ricky, I understand that because you're young, you're trying to figure out your voice. But Ricky, you get to be the preacher God has called you to be. And I just want you to know that the man I know you to be was not the preacher that you sounded like last night. And I would love to challenge you about that. And it was hard to hear, but it changed my life. It changed my ministry because it gave me confidence to believe that, yeah, there's something special and the gifting and calling that God's placed on my life that he wants me to bring to bear on the kingdom. Have you ever been in those moments where you've started to figure out that, man, I'm trying this tactic, or I'm emulating this particular style or this method. Maybe it's something in work or in church ministry. Maybe it's a methodology in your marriage or relationship or parenting, whatever the case may be. And for whatever reason, you're not seeing the same fruit in that method as the same fruit in the person who used the method. And although it's okay to try different things, sometimes God may be saying, you know what, there's something unique that I've anointed and called you to do and you to show up with. So just trust that and keep moving forward in your life. There's a wonderful story that comes out of 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 39. The Bible says, and David strapped his sword over his armor, and he tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Then David said to Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them. So David put them off. This is the story of David and Goliath, when Saul is about to commission this young little ruddy boy to go fight a 9.5-foot tall giant. And Saul, of course, puts all of his armor on David. And David, the little boy, is like, hey, I hadn't tested this stuff. And the King James says it this way, I haven't proven these things. In other words, you're about to call me to fight a battle your way, instead of the unique way God has gifted me to fight that battle. And most of you know the story. The Bible says David puts the armor off and he goes and get what he's been using out in the field, a sling and some rocks. And sure enough, it was what God used to defeat the giant in David's life. Who am I talking to this morning? Some of you, God is just gifted to have a particular kind of sling, if you will. And yet the big boys and the smart guys and the big consultants are saying, you know what, put on this armor. And although it's good and we should yield to wisdom, for some of us, God is saying, hey, I use that sling of yours out in the field, and I'll continue to use that sling of yours to slay the giants in your life. I guess this is what I want you to hear. Sometimes there's some things we need to put on, but also be cognizant to the reality that there's some things that we picked up that God's calling us to put off and do what he told us to do and show up like he called us to show up. And that's hope for today. I'll see you next time.